So transmission service on a 570S would be very similar on a 12C, 650, 675, 600 LT. So we've already drained the fluid. That's the bottom bolt for drainage. This is the fill bolt. This transmission has an internal pump. This is the cooler, also known as a Laminova. So this is a oil to water cooler. You can't see it, but there's actually water lines going into it from the main radiators to cool it. There's also one for the clutch. Same thing, Laminova, oil to water. There's also one on the very top of the motor for the engine oil, so they're basically cooling all the oil. The filter, that's why you had to drop the, is located here. There's one 10mm bolt that holds it in, and then it slides out. It's a very tight fit between here and there, but it will come out if you just work with it. You need the bar out of the way. The O-rings are very tight on this, so it takes some effort to get it out. Same way to get it back in. You really need to lubricate the O-rings. I'll show you the filter in just a second. I use dielectric grease. You can use any kind of good synthetic grease. Mobil 1 wheel bearing grease or other things. So it did take exactly 4 quarts is what drained out of it. There was a few ounces for the filter, but not enough to make any difference. So 4 quarts is what they say. We're going to go back with 4 quarts. The filter is basically this device. This is the one that came out. You can see it has some O-rings. Going back in, it's very tight. It takes some effort to get it in, but you need to lubricate. It's a stainless steel mesh filter. This one was reasonably clean after 9,000 miles. The only thing I really saw in there was some gasket material, almost no metal, but what looked to be gasket material that broke off after assembly. They looks like they used some paper gaskets in some of the stuff. Doesn't hurt the gears because it's soft. Also, this is what we're going back with. We're going to use Mobil 1 Delvac 75 W90 fully synthetic gear oil. It's actually a better product than the original product that McLaren recommended. I forget the other product, which is hard to find. So this is really the replacement for it. This is a 4-quart container. We also have a spare just in case, but we're going to see if it takes 4 quarts. So we're going to go ahead and refill it. Then they recommend you run it at idle, get some heat in the transmission, and then check it again to make sure it's up to the fill level. So anyway, I'll post some pictures of the new filter and the PDF of the service manual on how to fill the transmission or service it. It's fairly straightforward. So this is part 2 of the transmission service on a 570S McLaren. So we drained the transmission and we got about 4 quarts out of the transmission. When we popped this drain plug, before we drained it, I noticed that the level was not all the way up to the drain, so we weren't getting an overflow out, but I assumed that that's the way it was filled from the factory. So after putting in 4 quarts and running the engine at idle for about 3 minutes per the service agreement, or between the service book or the service instructions that I got off the McLaren website, which you have to pay by the hour to use. It took almost another quart to bring it up to the fill hole. So don't know, the service manual doesn't really tell you how much it takes. They just say to fill it to there. So we added almost another full quart, so almost 5 quarts once it was run. I'm assuming that's so the filter could get full and the pump and the Laminova over here could be filled with oil. For adding the quart, I have a small filler. I think I got it at AutoZone, I'm not sure, but it basically is a small device. It only holds a quart. It has an on-off spout or an on-off valve on it, so you can turn it off. And you can actually fit it up in here and get in there and drain it. So it was simple to add almost a quart, not quite, to make sure it was full once we did it. So that's basically the service. Now we have to put the diffuser back on and go test drive the car. So we're done.